Don't worry about your share, Stella. I've got this. Chad's voice dripped with the smugness of a guy who thinks he's the center of the universe. He tossed his glossy black Amex Centurion card onto the heavy oak table, the sharp clack echoing in the restaurant's hushed silence. Around us, the air seemed to thicken. The clink of forks against plates from other diners went quiet. He flashed a grin he probably thought was charming, but to me, it just looked like a sneer. Think of it as a donation, he went on, dropping his voice with deliberate condescension, to your little cooking hobby. Heat rushed to my face. Next to me, my sister Brooke's lips curled into a sly, complicit smile. My parents stayed silent, but their silence cut deeper than 1,000 criticisms. It was approval. In their eyes, I was still Stella, the black sheep of the Harrison family, the one who threw away a golden ticket to Stanford Law to chase a worthless hobby. And Chad, my sister's tech millionaire fiancé, was doling out pity like a king tossing coins to a beggar. My hands clenched under the table, nails digging into my palms. 5 years. 5 grueling years of 18-hour days. 5 years in cramped Napa studio apartments. 5 years of sweat, tears, and blood poured into my dream, all to sit here and swallow this humiliation. The manager, Sebastian, a polished man in a perfectly tailored suit, approached the table with a professional smile and picked up the card. "Thank you, Mr. Vance," he said, then slipped away. That was the longest moment of my life. Chad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, savoring his victory. He'd proven his status, put me in my place. But then Sebastian returned. His professional smile was gone, replaced by an awkward, almost sympathetic expression. He stepped close to Chad, leaning in. The room was so quiet I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. And then he spoke, soft enough to seem discreet, but loud enough for our whole table to hear. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Vance. Your card, it was declined." Yes, that moment. The one where the universe seemed to hold its breath, as Chad's face went from the flush of arrogance to the pallor of humiliation. The moment Brooke looked at him like she was seeing a crack in his perfect armor for the first time. And you know what's craziest? That scene, that embarrassment, wasn't even the best part of the story. It was just the appetizer. Because what my sister's pompous boyfriend and my whole family didn't know was that the manager wasn't just about to reject his card. He was about to turn to me, the one they just called a failure, and say words that would shift the entire power dynamic of my family forever. In today's video, we're not stopping here. We're going back 5 years through every drop of sweat and every tear in the crucible of San Francisco's culinary scene. We'll dissect every snide remark, every dismissive glance from that fateful dinner. Then we'll circle back to this exact moment to witness the full fallout when my biggest secret came to light. And most importantly, at the end of the video, I'll share the hardest won lesson I've learned about self-worth and the power of stepping into your own arena. Before we dive in, let me know, have you ever felt underestimated by someone? Drop "I get it" in the comments below if you've been in a moment like this and want to see justice served. All right, let's start from the beginning. To grasp the deadly silence in that room, you need to know the world I left behind. The Harrison family's world wasn't measured by laughter, but by the weight of silence. It lived in a sprawling mansion in San Francisco's Pacific Heights, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the majestic Golden Gate Bridge, but the air inside always felt a little cold. My father, Richard Harrison, was a man who built his empire in finance, believing legacy was carved into corporate signs and shareholder reports, not fleeting passions. It all started one evening, 5 years ago, in a formal dining room much like Aura's, but far colder. That was the day I got acceptance letters from both Stanford Law and the country's most prestigious culinary institute. For my family, the choice was a no-brainer. My sister, Brooke, had graduated with an art history degree from an elite university, the perfect path to becoming an educated wife for a wealthy man. My brother, Leo, was following my father's footsteps in finance. And me? I was expected to be the lawyer, the crown jewel of our family. When I announced I'd chosen the Culinary Institute, my father didn't yell. He set his silver fork down slowly, the metal clinking against porcelain like a gunshot in the stillness. He looked at me, not with anger, but with a disappointment that stung worse. "Stella," he said, his voice even but heavy, "a Harrison doesn't play with foam and flowers in a kitchen. We build empires. My mother, Cynthia, just gave a slight shake of her head, a delicate gesture carrying the judgment of an entire social class. "But what about your future?" she asked. To them, future meant status and financial security. That night, I made my choice. I left that house with a single suitcase, a small savings account, and my father's cold declaration that the Harrison door was closed until I came to my senses. And just like that, my world flipped. I traded Pacific Heights' crisp air for a studio apartment in Oakland, barely 320 square feet, where the air smelled musty and fire truck sirens were a nightly symphony. Instead of waking to a bay view, I woke to a brick wall. The years that followed were an endless grind, starting at 4 a.m. My first job was as a prep cook at a seafood joint on Fisherman's Wharf, shucking thousands of oysters daily until my fingertips went numb and bled. My hands reeked of brine and lemon zest. After that, I'd catch a bus to Napa Valley, working unpaid at a Michelin-starred restaurant just to be near the best, to learn how they turned raw ingredients into art. I scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and chopped vegetables for hours, all for a few minutes watching the chef craft a flawless sauce. It was a trade-off, a sacrifice. But to me, it was freedom. In the sweltering heat of those kitchens, amid the chef's shouts and relentless pressure, I found myself. My hands, once expected by my mother to sign million-dollar contracts, were now scarred with tiny burns from hot pans and ovens. I had no time for friends, no weekends. My life shrank to a cycle of prepping, cooking, cleaning, and a few hours of fitful sleep, where I'd dream of dissecting a dish's structure. I didn't just cook, I studied it. I spent my scarce cash on old books about food chemistry and culinary history. I turned my tiny kitchen into a lab, experimenting with gel spherification and fermentation, searching for my own voice in every flavor. Some nights, I failed spectacularly. A dish collapsed, a loaf of bread burned to charcoal, and I'd slump to the floor, crying from exhaustion and loneliness. But the next morning, I was up at 4 a.m. I caught that bus, because the fire in me burned hotter than any oven. I wasn't doing this to prove my family wrong. I was doing it to prove to myself I was right, that there was another path, another definition of success. Then, after 3 years toiling in the shadows of those kitchens, a small spark appeared, a competition for young chefs in the Bay Area. With my last few bucks, I signed up. With my last few dollars, I signed up. The Bay Area Rising Stars competition for young chefs wasn't some glitzy event. It was a true arena. Held in a renovated industrial warehouse, the air was thick with ambition and pressure. Around me were other young chefs, many from renowned restaurants, backed by assistants and expensive gear. Me? I was alone, with my worn-out knife set and a quiet focus. The challenge was to create a single dish that captured your personal philosophy as a chef. When the clock started ticking, chaos erupted. Metal clanged, blenders roared, voices shouted. But in my corner, I slipped into another world. I'd decided against a complex dish with luxurious ingredients like foie gras or caviar. That wasn't me. Instead, I crafted a dish I called Whisper of the Earth. Its foundation was humble ingredients I'd sourced from local farmers markets. Beets slow roasted for hours until their sweetness condensed into candy-like intensity, wild miner's lettuce with a faint tartness, and an edible soil made from black trumpet mushrooms and toasted hazelnuts. The creative spark was in the technique. I turned beet juice into liquid pearls, shimmering like rubies through spherification. I added a delicate mist of homemade apple cider vinegar to balance the sweetness. This wasn't a dish to fill your stomach. It was a dish to make you think. It told the story of California's resilient land, of finding beauty in the simplest things. It was my 5-year journey, distilled onto a white porcelain plate. When I set my dish before the judges, top chefs and food critics, I saw skepticism in their eyes. It was too simple, too minimalist compared to the elaborate creations around it. But then the first judge took a small spoonful. The doubt on his face melted into surprise, then a slow, thoughtful nod. The others reacted the same. They said nothing, but in their silence, I felt recognition. The name called next felt like a dream. The winner of this year's Bay Area Rising Stars, Stella Harrison. I stood frozen. The sounds around me faded, leaving only my name echoing. Tears I'd held back for years finally spilled, not from sadness, but from release. The weight of 3 lonely years, thousands of hours of labor, and relentless self-doubt lifted from my shoulders in that moment. But that victory was just the start. As I stood backstage, still trembling with emotion, a man in a simple but expensive jacket approached me. He wasn't a chef. He was James Chen, one of Silicon Valley's most renowned venture capitalists, known for betting on companies that disrupt markets. "Miss Harrison," he said, his voice calm and sharp. "I tasted your dish. Plenty of people here make good food. You told a story. You're not just selling a dish, you're selling an experience, a unique brand that can scale." He locked eyes with me. "I don't invest in restaurants. I invest in visionaries. What's your vision?" That conversation changed everything. James didn't see a cook. He saw an entrepreneur. He saw the potential to build an empire, but on my own terms. With his financial backing and business expertise, my dream started taking shape. We found the perfect spot in Soma, a failed nightclub, a vast space with high ceilings, but dark and cluttered. For months, I lived on that construction site. I didn't just design the menu. I handpicked every chair, every plate, every light. I wanted Aura to be more than a restaurant, a space where food, art, and emotion intertwined. Most importantly, I built my team. I hired Sebastian, my manager, for his dedication and knack for reading people. I sought out young chefs with the same burning passion as me, ones willing to experiment and take risks. We weren't just coworkers. We became a family, built on respect and a shared drive, worlds apart from the family I'd left behind. 6 months later, Aura opened. Success came faster than I dared to dream. Rave reviews spread. The New York Times gave us 4 stars. Reservations became nearly impossible. I stood in my own kitchen, watching a packed dining room savor dishes I'd poured my heart into, and for the first time in years, I felt I'd truly come home. I'd built my own empire, not from steel and concrete, but from beets and edible flowers. And I'd done it alone. So when I got the invitation to attend my sister's engagement dinner at my own restaurant, a place they'd chosen only for its hype, I knew I couldn't say no. It was time for my 2 worlds to collide. Accepting that invitation was easier said than done. In the days leading up to the dinner, I wrestled with myself. Part of me wanted to cancel, to keep my success safely mine, shielded from the judgmental stares I knew too well. But a stronger part knew this had to happen. I wasn't that scared girl from years ago. I'd built something from nothing. I didn't need their approval, but I needed to prove to myself I could face them without crumbling. That evening, I chose my outfit carefully. Not some flashy designer dress to impress them. Instead, I wore a midnight blue silk dress, simple but impeccably tailored, designed by a lesser-known local artist. I pulled my hair into a neat bun, kept my makeup minimal. I knew how my family would read it. Stella's trying her best with what she's got. They'd see a pitiful attempt at elegance, not a deliberate choice of quiet confidence. That was exactly the role I needed to play. When I pushed open Aura's heavy glass door, a familiar scent enveloped me. Saffron? Reduced wine? Fresh herbs I insisted be delivered twice daily. Normally, this aroma steadied me, a reminder of everything I'd built. Tonight, it only tightened the anxiety in my chest. Sebastian, my manager, the first person I hired, spotted me instantly. He stood at the host stand, his eyes widening slightly at seeing me enter through the front like a guest. I gave a subtle shake of my head, silent. He got it immediately, a discreet nod confirming the act had begun. From the entrance, I could see them. Of course, they demanded the best table, dead center in the dining room. They sat there, a living portrait of wealth and power. My mother, Cynthia, in a classic Chanel dress. My father, Richard, studying the wine list with exaggerated focus. My sister, Brooke, draped in the latest Gucci, next to a man I assumed was Chad. His slicked back hair and glinting watch caught the light with every wrist flick. My brother, Leo, and his wife, Allison, completed the picture, both in corporate attire like they'd come straight from high-stakes meetings. The hostess, a young woman named Maya, approached with a warm smile. "Good evening, miss." She nearly said my last name but caught herself. "Your table's ready. Follow me." I silently thanked her, quick thinking. As we neared, my mother noticed me first. Her eyes did that rapid scan I remembered from childhood, a head-to-toe appraisal, calculating my appearance's worth, clearly finding it lacking. "Stella," she said, rising to air-kiss my cheek. "You finally made it. We were wondering." "I'm right on time, Mom," I replied, glancing at my watch. 7:30. My father stood, giving me a stiff hug ending in an awkward back pat. "You look healthy," he said, which in Harrison speak meant I hadn't maintained the near unhealthy thinness prized in their circles. Brooke rose reluctantly, offering her cheek for a kiss. "This is Chad," she introduced. Her fiancé stood and extended his hand. His grip was too tight, a power play I'd seen in countless business meetings. "Princeton undergrad, Wharton MBA," he announced. "Just made VP at Goldman. No nice to meet you or I've heard about you. Just credentials and status. The love language of the Mitchell family." As I took the last empty chair, I felt the room's energy, an energy I'd worked so hard to shape. The lighting, the sounds, the spacing of the tables, the weight of the napkins. Every detail was my choice. I caught my staff glancing at me, then quickly returning to their tasks, professional but with curiosity in their eyes. "We ordered champagne already," my mother said. "Hope that's okay." I recognized it as the second priciest bottle on our list. Showy, but not reckless. Typical. Matteo, our sommelier, approached with the champagne. He caught my eye, a faint eyebrow raise, asking if I wanted him to acknowledge me. I gave an almost imperceptible head shake. "Excellent choice," Matteo told my father, presenting the bottle with practiced grace. "I hear this place is tough to get into," I said, playing innocent. Chad leaned forward. "I've got connections," he said with a smug wink. "A client knows the management." I stifled a smile. That client was probably one of my early investors. I made a mental note to talk to them about Chad later. When Jessica, one of our most seasoned servers, brought out the amuse-bouche, a compressed watermelon bite with fermented black garlic and microgreens sourced from a specialized urban farm, my sister Brooke eyed it with disappointment. "This is it?" she asked. "I'm starving." "It's an amuse-bouche," I explained. "A palate teaser." "I know what an amuse-bouche is, Stella," she snapped. I'm not culturally illiterate just because I chose law over playing with food. I watched as they tried my creation. My parents took the tiniest possible nibbles. Chad shoved the whole thing in his mouth, swallowing almost instantly. Brooke didn't touch hers. "I don't eat raw garlic," she declared, though the black garlic, fermented for 60 days, had none of raw garlic's bite. As Jessica cleared the plates, I caught a flicker of disappointment in her eyes at Brooke's untouched dish. In that moment, I felt protective, not of myself, but of my team, who took such pride in our work. The dinner had just started, but I could already feel the old patterns settling in. I was the outsider. But unlike the Stella of 5 years ago, tonight, I sat at this table with a secret strength. As the small plates were cleared, an awkward silence settled, broken only by the soft glug of Matteo pouring champagne. To fill the void, I steered the conversation. "So, how's the wedding planning going?" I asked, turning to Brooke. It seemed like a safe move, or so I thought. My sister's eyes lit up instantly. "Oh, it's amazing," she said. "We booked St. Thomas's Church, obviously. The reception's at the plaza, about 400 guests, though Mom thinks we should trim it to 350. The guest list is getting tricky. The Astor Williams family hasn't spoken to the Bennetts since that unfortunate yacht incident." My mother cut in, her voice heavy with gravity. "So we can't seat them in the same section." It took everything not to laugh. The way they discussed these social maneuvers with the seriousness of a global summit never ceased to amaze me. 400 sounds like a lot, I blurted out. Chad, the fiancé, leaned forward, all condescension. "It's networking, not just a celebration," he said. "Half those invites are investments in relationships." "Exactly," my father agreed. "Chad gets the social capital angle. A wedding of this scale opens doors." Meanwhile, the second course arrived. Seared scallops with a perfect golden crust, nestled on a vibrant emulsion of brown butter and pickled leeks. A spring dish I was especially proud of. "And you, Stella?" Brooke said, turning to me, her voice sharp as a blade. "Any prospects? Or are you still too busy with your cooking thing?" The way she sneered cooking made it sound like a disease. I noticed she barely touched her scallops, just pushing them around her plate with her fork. "I'm focusing on my career right now," I said simply. "Career?" My brother Leo echoed with a soft chuckle, trying to pass it off as supportive but failing miserably. "That's what we're calling it?" My mother seized the moment. "Stella, sweetheart, at 29, you really should think about settling down. There's Margaret Whitley's lovely son. He's in hospital administration, I believe, very stable. I'm not looking for a matchmaker, Mom. Well, Your options will only narrow with each year, she pressed, especially in your situation. Before I could respond, the third course arrived, cutting her off. Hand-rolled tagliatelle, delicate as silk, with spring peas, guanciale, and mint. One of Aura's signature dishes featured in Food and Wine. The portions here are ridiculous, my mother remarked, eyeing the artfully plated pasta. All this expense for 3 bites. It's about quality over quantity, Mom, I said, my patience wearing thin. The tasting menu is designed to take you through a range of flavors and textures. In my day, my father grumbled, restaurants gave you a proper meal for your money. This newfangled food nonsense is just a way to charge more for less. I stayed quiet, watching Chad hack through the pasta I'd rolled by hand that morning, slicing it with his knife instead of twirling it with his fork. Then Brooke landed the blow I knew was coming. So how exactly do you afford a place like this on a food server's salary, Stella? She asked bluntly. This is one of the priciest restaurants in the city. Every eye turned to me. I felt the familiar walls closing in. I manage my finances carefully, I said, my voice steady. Oh, come on, Brooke scoffed. A dinner here costs more than you make in a week. Are you dating someone? Is he footing the bill? I'm not dating anyone. Then how can you afford this place? She pressed, leaning forward, her eyes gleaming with glee. Are you drowning in debt? Maxing out credit cards to save face? Brooke, Leo warned again, looking genuinely uneasy. No. I want to know, she insisted, her gaze locked on me. We all rearranged our schedules for this dinner at one of the city's fanciest restaurants that you suggested. Either you're financially reckless or you're not being honest about your situation. Which is it, Stella? Her question hung in the air, laced with venom and insult. I opened my mouth to answer, ready to end this charade right there, when Chad suddenly frowned at the bill a server had discreetly placed on the table. Hold on, he declared. There's a mistake here. He waved the server over sharply. Sorry, our bill's wrong. Sebastian, my manager, approached our table with perfect calm, as if the thick tension in the air didn't faze him. Is there an issue, sir? He asked, his professional tone unwavering. You bet there is, Chad said, jabbing at the bill. Your bill's messed up. You only charged for drinks, not the whole meal. He spoke with the confidence of someone who thought he'd done the restaurant a favor while flexing his own sharp eye. Sebastian glanced at the bill, then at me. A split-second silence held 5 years of my story. I gave a nearly imperceptible nod, the only signal he needed. He turned back to Chad, his face still composed. No mistake, sir, Sebastian said clearly. The meal's already been covered. My father frowned. Covered? By who? That's when the curtain fell. Sebastian didn't answer my father right away. Instead, he turned to me with formal grace. The professionalism in his voice now carried a deep warmth and respect. Welcome back, Miss Harrison, he said. Apologies for the inconvenience. Your private table for the meeting with the wine team is ready. Should I comp the drinks to the house account as usual? Silence. Not like the awkward pauses before. This was a deafening, breathless silence, stunned beyond words. 6 pairs of eyes locked onto me, but this time they weren't smug or judgmental. They were filled with shock, confusion, and disbelief. Brooke's jaw practically hit the floor. My father squinted, his financial brain scrambling to process impossible data. My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace, a reflex when social balance slipped away. Chad looked like someone had sucked the air from his lungs. Only Leo, my brother, stared at me with a mix of horror and dawning realization. I took a deep breath, a strange calm washing over me. Thank you, Sebastian, I said, my voice steady. I'll head over in a few minutes. As Sebastian left, I faced my family, still frozen in shock. Welcome to Aura, I said simply. My restaurant? Your restaurant? My father repeated, the words catching in his throat. You mean you work here? No, Dad, I said clearly. I own it. I'm the executive chef and sole proprietor. No way, Brooke blurted. This is one of the top restaurants. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table. A text. I glanced at the screen. It was from James Chen, my investor. Short and to the point. FYI, that Chad Vance guy, his startup just tanked its Series B round. Whole empire's crumbling. Steer clear. I kept my face neutral, lifting my eyes to Brooke, who was still staring at me in disbelief. For a moment, I felt no smug satisfaction, just a fleeting pity for her, betting her future on a house of cards. I stood. I have to go now, I said. I've got a meeting. Stella, wait, Leo said suddenly, standing too. His voice shook. I'm sorry. I knew. A partner in my fund invested here. I've known for over a year, but I was too spineless to say anything. I'm sorry. His confession caught me off guard. I looked at my brother, seeing real remorse in his eyes for the first time. I nodded, a silent acceptance of his apology. We can't leave it like this, my mother said, her voice frantic, grasping for some order. We should celebrate your success. My success? I asked. Or your relief that I'm no longer a social embarrassment? I scanned the table, taking in the faces that once made me feel small and worthless. I didn't build this place for your approval, I said, my voice free of any tremble. I built it because this is who I am. The truth is, its success doesn't make my passion any more valuable than it was 5 years ago. It was always valuable. I turned and walked toward the kitchen, toward my team, toward my real family. As the kitchen door swung open, the familiar sounds of laughter and work welcomed me. I was home. Standing there in the kingdom I'd created, I finally grasped a profound lesson. The world is full of critics in the stands, judging, mocking, and tearing down those actually fighting in the arena. My family, with all their good intentions, had been those critics. But recognition never belongs to them. It belongs to the one in the arena, face smeared with dust, sweat, and blood, who strives bravely, who fails and falls again and again, but never stops trying. The greatest lesson isn't whether you succeed. It's whether you dare to step into your own arena. Dare to chase what sets you ablaze. Dare to build something that's yours, no matter the voices on the sidelines. Because in the end, the only approval that truly matters is the one you give yourself. 6 months have passed since that fateful night at Aura. Life didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale, but the cracks in the icy wall between my family and me have started to mend, not through some miracle, but through small, honest efforts. We've started a new tradition, Sunday brunch, not at my parents' country club, nor at Aura. I picked the spot, usually small cafes or artisanal bakeries I love, places that value ingredients and craft over fame. Today, we're at a cozy diner in Berkeley, known for its sourdough bread and homemade jam. Morning sunlight streams through the windows, and for the first time in years, I feel genuinely at ease sitting with them. My father, Richard, who once only talked stock indices, now asks me about profit margins on menu items and the challenges of managing supply chains. His eyes hold no judgment, just a sincere curiosity, an attempt to understand my world through the lens he knows best, business. He's started seeing my passion as a venture, and in his world, that's the highest form of respect. My mother, Cynthia, has stopped trying to play matchmaker. Instead, she asks about the origin of the honey we're using, the story of the farmer who grew these strawberries. She's learning a new language, one of caring about small details she once dismissed as trivial. She's still clumsy at it, but she's trying. The biggest change is probably Brooke. After her engagement fell apart, Chad vanished from our lives almost overnight when his tech empire collapsed. She went through a rough patch. But from those ashes, a new Brooke emerged. She no longer wears designer outfits like armor. Today, she's in a simple sweater, its sleeves speckled with dried clay. Check this out, she says, showing me a photo on her phone of a lopsided but vibrant ceramic vase. My first one off the pottery wheel. It's awful, but it's mine. She signed up for a pottery class. A hands-on craft, something that demands patience and embraces imperfection. She's found her own little arena. For the first time, we talk not as rivals, but as two women trying to create something beautiful in this world. My brother Leo sits beside me, now a bridge. He's become a translator between me and our parents, explaining culinary terms to Dad and telling Mom about the pressures of the restaurant industry. His confession that night broke down our barriers, and forgiveness, though not instant, has sprouted from that honesty. As the meal ends, there's no awkwardness over who pays. We split the bill naturally. Stepping out into the fresh morning air, my mother turns to me and says something simple, but to me, it means more than any praise she's ever given. Today's meal, it was delicious, honey. Driving home, I reflect on the journey. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a garden you tend, pulling the weeds of old hurts and sowing seeds of new understanding. Our relationship will never be perfect, and the old scars remain, but they don't ache anymore. They're reminders of where we've been and how far we've come. My story isn't one of revenge. If anything, it's about liberation. liberation from others' expectations, from fear of failure, and most importantly, from needing someone else's validation to feel whole. Each of us, in our own way, is learning to fight in our own arena. And maybe that's what family really means. Not a group of perfect people who never stumble, but a bunch of flawed ones learning to reach out and help each other up, time and again. A year after that fateful night, Aura is more than a restaurant. On weeknights, it's a stage for culinary art. But every Saturday morning, it transforms into something else. A lab, a classroom, a sanctuary. That's when my mentorship program, Next Gen Chef, comes to life. Each weekend, I open my kitchen to a small group of 8 young chefs from tough backgrounds. They're raw talent, with fire in their eyes, but lacking opportunity and guidance. Looking at them, I see myself 5 years ago. This Saturday morning, we're tackling a tricky technique, crafting a thin gel layer from crystal clear consommé. It demands absolute precision in temperature and ratios. One tiny slip, and the gel turns cloudy or won't set. The kitchen hums with focused quiet, broken only by the clink of tools and my gentle instructions. I notice Sophia, the youngest in the group. She has an incredible natural palate and a stunning sensitivity to flavors, but her confidence is painfully low. Her shoulders are always slightly hunched, braced for criticism. Her hands, though skilled, move with hesitation. I see her staring at her consommé pot, lips pressed tight. Her gel isn't perfectly clear, it has a faint haze. I know a battle's raging in her head. Will she hide it or present an imperfect result? She glances at me, eyes full of fear. I step beside her, saying nothing, just looking at the broth. "Sorry, chef," she mumbles. I messed it up. I place a hand gently on her shoulder. "Sophia," I say softly. "Look at me. A mistake isn't the end. It's the start of learning. A mistake proves you're trying, pushing your limits further." I point to the faint scars on my arm. "See these? Each one's a story of a screw-up. This one's from burning my first batch of caramel sauce. This one's from a too-hot pan while searing scallops for a VIP. My first chef screamed at me in front of the whole kitchen. I thought it was the end of the world. I meet Sophia's eyes, now brimming with tears. But it wasn't the end of the world. I learned to control caramel's heat. I learned to handle a hot pan. Those mistakes were my best teachers, even if they hurt like hell at the time. It's not about never screwing up. It's about what you do after. I grab a clean spoon. Let's figure out why it's cloudy. Maybe the heat was a touch too high? Next time, we'll drop it by 2 degrees. Now let's start over. I'll do it with you. A subtle shift crosses Sophia's face. Fear gives way to fresh resolve. She nods, and we start again. As I guide Sophia through filtering the broth once more, I glance up and spot my father standing in the kitchen doorway. He's silent, just watching. He's here to pick me up for lunch. Another new habit of ours. I don't know how long he's been there. He's not eyeing the state-of-the-art equipment or the scale of the operation. His gaze is fixed on me and Sophia, on how patiently I'm coaching her. I see a new expression on his face, one I've never seen before. It's not pride in a daughter who owns a successful restaurant. It's a deeper understanding. He's seeing a teacher, a leader, someone building a different kind of legacy, not with money or status, but by empowering the next generation. I smile at Sophia as she finishes her new consommé, this time clear as glass. Then I smile at my father across the room. In that moment, no words are needed. He gets it. He finally, truly gets it. The empire I'm building isn't made of skyscrapers or stock market numbers. It's made of people, of growth, and of the belief that anyone with enough passion and a little guidance can shine in their own arena.